The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from the Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California. Now your host, Nicole Hutchison.
Cowboys Nation, what's up? What's poppin'? We are bringing you Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, right here in Oxnard, California. I'm Nicole Hutchison alongside Christy Scales, and we have a new member on the team, Bonnie Jill Laughlin, first female scout. You worked with the LA Lakers, former DCC, but also an author. I mean, you pretty much do it all. Welcome to the team, girl.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be with you guys. I'm so impressed by y'all's knowledge, and I love being here talking Cowboys, and just hope to have a good time and break down some players and talk about matchups and get it going.
We're excited to have you. Just tell us, a little bit about yourself. Tell Cowboys Nation what's up, give us a little introduction.
Yeah, I actually cheered. I was telling Christy back in the day, the 90s, with the triplets with Aikman, Irvin, and Smith.
During the Super Bowls.
When we were winning Super Bowls, y'all. It was a fun time, and I've always, stayed, blue and silver has always been my thing, and I moved to California, and then finally, a year ago, moved back to Texas and Fort Worth, and been really just immersed in Cowboys Nation, and now happy to be here with y'all. And I come to camp every year, regardless when I was working or not, and it's just something, I've always just been so loyal to a fault. I get pretty angry, get pretty crazy. I'm one of those, pretty passionate fans, as well as when I'm covering a team. So I kind of have to try to remember to separate that, because we all get emotional.
Sure,
and you got to remember, you got to be biased. You got to make sure you're doing your job. But I am an emotional Cowboys fan, and distraught and disappointed sometimes. I'll be honest.
Well, we're going to take this as a positive omen.
Sure.
But last night, on the eve of Bonnie Jill coming on the show, we had an earthquake here at training camp.
Yes, it was here because it wasn't at the party.
It wasn't at the party.
So last night was the media party that the Jones family hosts every year, and it's in Malibu at Nobu, so super swanky, very nice. But I'd say it's probably about a 40-minute ride from here in Oxnard. And so Ventura County, Oxnard, about 9:15 last night, everyone who did not go to the party and was still back here, their phones go off. It's like an Amber Alert, and everyone could feel the earthquake. Meanwhile, we're down at Nobu, and I don't think that it had anything to do with the mango martini, but I didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel anything
either at all.
Oh, wow.
Wait, did you?
I didn't feel anything.
No,
I think it was closer to here, though. I believe
it was here. Yeah, we couldn't feel it down there. But
we're having a good time, so maybe
Exactly. I did want to ask one thing, because you mentioned with the cheerleaders, and the America's Sweethearts on Netflix is still so popular, and I'm hearing from people I hadn't heard from in 30 years.
Same.
That have seen the show. What were your overall thoughts on the not just the production value but the storytelling?
I loved it. It was so different from Making the Team, because before with Making the Team on CMT, it was more just about the audition process, making the team. But now I feel like they really highlighted on the personalities of the individuals, which I liked, in the stories and the background, and how some of the girls, what they've overcome, the adversity from, challenges with their father passing away, or different things that I think everyone can kind of relate to each girl. Like everyone kind of said, that's a girl that I could relate to. I understand what she went through, and just showing how hard we work. 'Cause I think a lot of people think when they hear cheerleaders or dancers, I don't think they realize what goes into that. Practicing 5 hours a night, like being there day in, day out, and loving it, and not about getting paid. Like for me, it wasn't about that. It was about having the best seats, at the stadium. I was old, so Texas Stadium, and being there and just enjoying that whole process. And I think that showed that these girls don't do it for the money. They do it because they love to dance, they love to perform, and they love the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
You obviously, you love the team. So just how good does it feel to be back and actually covering the Cowboys?
I love it. Just being here in Oxnard, it's always there's some energy that you get the minute you drive in here, and just seeing this new team kind of come together, seeing the new coordinators, and kind of just figuring it all out. And I think it's going to be a positive year. I think there's still a lot of decisions to be made, but you can see already that there's some energy that Dak has. I think I'm seeing a little bit of spark, and I think people worried about Zeke. He definitely has the burst. He's not what you saw maybe with the Patriots. So I think it's all the chemistry coming together, and I believe it's positive, or I'm trying to be positive.
We're bringing the positive vibes for this team this year.
Well, one thing, because of your experience as a scout with the Lakers, but also as an author, and I know your book was about female first in sports, so the Billie Jean Kings of the world and the like. What commonalities do you see between those ladies and then some of the great athletes that you either scouted or worked with the Lakers, or that you see trying to make their way in the NFL now?
I think a lot of it is the work ethic, which I believe is so important, the sacrifices. I mean, you ladies know as well, anything you're going to have passion about, that you're going to make a career, you have to have sacrifices and you have to have that work ethic. And it's the stuff like showing up before anyone else, being the last one to leave. And that's what you see, you know, with a lot of these guys that are trying to make the team, even if it's just making the practice squad, is having that work ethic and to keep pushing and perseverance and that grit and tenacity. I think that shows from a lot of these players.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned work ethic, because today it was it was a mock game, which just means walk through. So kind of a lighter day, media-wise here in Oxnard. But they did make the assistant coaches available to the media afterwards.
Yes.
And so Greg Ellis, the former Cowboy first-round pick in 1998, and people saying, "Oh, I remember Greg Ellis. Is he coaching for the Cowboys now?" Yes, he is. In fact, this is his first year as an NFL coach, and obviously as coaching the Cowboys, he had done some NAIA. He was down in Waxahachie at Southwest Assemblies of God there, but he was being asked about Marshawn Kneeland, and of course Marshawn is getting first-team reps at defensive end after the season-ending knee injury to Sam Williams. But he was telling a story about Marshawn. He was saying that the players had a day off, and yet he's getting these texts from Marshawn saying, "Hey, Coach, can we watch some film together?"
Yeah.
And so Greg's having to hang up from, you know, he's talking with his wife on the phone. Back at home, he's like, "I got to go because, you know, Marshawn wants to watch some film." And she's like, "I thought it was the day off." It's like, it is.
There's no day off.
There's no day off at all.
But I think that's I wanted fans to know about
I love that.
what some of these rookies are doing on their day off.
Well, that's
something-
also
yeah.
Brock Hoffman. You know, he really showed, talking about work ethic, putting the extra time in, getting his confidence in, communicating. Dak has confidence in him.
Right.
That just shows the work ethic that he's put in to make the difference, to make this team, and to be the starting center.
Yeah. And Marshawn Kneeland, going back to you, Christy, something that he told me media day was that, like, I'm just ready to play football constantly. Like, he loves the grind of what it takes to, obviously he's a rookie, so he just loves the grind, though, the everyday grind of football. And I think that he has what it takes to be a starter in this league. Speaking too fast right now, but obviously, like, in the next couple of years, be a really potential starter in this league. But when you're talking about these rookies, Mike McCarthy has talked so highly of these guys, and like the fact that they just they're a little different breed, probably the best rookie class that he's coached. What are your first thoughts and first impressions with this rookie class so far?
Well, so mature and well prepared coming in, and Bonnie Jean, I think, can speak to this. Bonnie Jill can speak to this because
I go by Billie Jean, Bobby
Bo-
Joe. You're fine.
Bonnie
Anything
Jill,
with the BJ,
Bonnie
you're
Jill,
good.
Bonnie Jill can
We're
speak
good,
to this.
Christy.
So I had Billie Jean in my
Yeah,
head.
exactly.
So the when you have like with the NBA, it's a lot of players straight out of high school or maybe just a year, maybe two in college. Whereas now in the NFL, especially with COVID and with NIL and players staying in longer, we've got rookies who are 24, some even 25 years old. And so Mike McCarthy has talked about that a couple times over the last couple years, about just the maturity level, and that it seems like the young guys are coming in more
You nailed
prepared.
that. Having more time in college, you grow not just as a player, as a person, which helps your communication and be able to be uncomfortable and be okay with that. And I think that's what you're seeing with a lot of these rookies.
Bonnie Jill, how do you compare this rookie class to previous Cowboys rookie classes as far as their maturity level?
Maturity, definitely what Chrissy said. Also, I think the athleticism. There's something about this rookie class. I think they really have the athleticism and physicality that I haven't seen before with some of these rookies. And I don't know if it's because they have stayed in college a little bit longer, but definitely the maturity is there. And I think the IQ seems to be higher as well.
Yeah. And the one thing this staff really does, when you get to regular season, the rookies get a lot more opportunities in games than some, I'll say, previous regimes. And of course, when you've been around 34 years, that's going way, way, way back.
I think I know who you're talking about.
But generally, the coaches, their jobs are on the line, and you want to go with what you know that you have. And sometimes rookies with less experience, it's kind of a wild card, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to go with what you feel secure about, and you know what you're going to get. And so there have been some regimes that are more reluctant to give rookies
Absolutely.
bigger roles or playing time as you go through. Now, part of it is also now you have a 17-game season, so just by attrition, you know that more rookies are going to get opportunities, whether it's injuries or just kind of trying to maybe rest guys a little more. But I think that's a big difference too, is these rookies, and not just Cowboys, but across the NFL, I just think that overall they're getting more opportunities to play early in the season and in their careers, rather than having to, take a ticket at the ice cream at Baskin Robbins and wait in line,
Don't you all think also we have some really good veterans that are able to take these rookies
Yes.
under their wing? I mean,
Yes.
that's what I've noticed as well, because on other teams that you see, that's not always the case. You, of course, have that competitive spirit, but I still believe that these veterans want these rookies to do well, and they want to help them, from what I've seen.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Well, we've talked about the rookies. We've shined a light on those guys. We got to talk about the vets, though. How about the new signings the Cowboys have just added to the roster? We'll be talking that right here after the break.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dickey family always mandated that the only Polish-style sausage worthy of their restaurant must have high-quality coarse ground beef and pork, rich spices, and fresh natural casings. We still serve it to this day, and it's so popular, Dickey's sausage has been named the official sausage of the Dallas Cowboys. The perfect matchup on game day. Dickey's Barbecue Pit. No one outsmokes us. Order at dickeys.com. For groups, call 866-BARBECUE. Dibs on the ribs.
Cowboys Nation, Dallas Cowboys United, presented by Globe Life, is now exclusively in the Dallas Cowboys app. Join the official fan club today to receive access to the all-new Cowboys Drops feature, team news and pre-sale access, and fan and kid of the game. Download the app now to join.
Go ahead and download the app, Cowboys Nation. We're back here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We've got Nick Harris joining us. Nick, what's poppin', man?
Hey, I appreciate y'all having me on. Always a good time. Always a great time. Thank
Always.
you.
Are you a former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader like Bonnie Jill?
Unfortunately,
Weren't you on my team, I thought?
nah, I
Okay.
didn't make it through the tryout. They
I
didn't
don't
want me
think
to
Nick
come
has
back.
enough
Yeah.
for them. It's
Training
fine.
camp.
Yeah, I'm here at camp. You know.
We have had 2 gentlemen, at least in the 20-something years I've been judging, that have
Yeah.
auditioned. So
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
wait,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
sure.
That is wild. That is wild.
Absolutely.
So-
wild.
I was not one of them.
So if you
Nope.
start training now, you'll be ready by next May.
Yeah, about time, right? Yeah, Netflix time. You know, I'm trying to get on that.
sick.
You feel me?
The star, right?
Exactly.
The Star. Now, speaking of the Star, well, the Cowboys, they have added some new linebackers to the fold. Nick Vigil, former Bengals guy, and Darius Harris, who spent some time with the Chiefs. Nick, I've got to start with you. How valuable is this depth? Because clearly Mike Zimmer is highlighting the fact fact that linebackers are important to this team.
Yeah, for sure. And whenever he got into the building, it was at a linebacker, whether it be through the draft, free agency, getting DeMarvion Overshown back from injury. But then again, you get to camp and you feel like the numbers are where they probably need to be. He's like, hey, why don't we add 2 more guys? And you look at these 2 guys that they added, and you understand. You start to understand why these 2 guys were added. Nick Vigil, a 3rd-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals back in the 2016 draft. He was drafted by current Cowboys defensive run game coordinator Paul Gunther when he was the defensive coordinator up in Cincinnati. So he has 2 years of experience playing in Cincy with Gunther, and then he also has 1 year of experience playing with Mike Zimmer back in 2020 with the Minnesota Vikings. So he knows the system so well that he came out onto the practice field today, and on the very first day, even though it was a mock game, he was getting in with the first and second teams and getting reps and showing guys where to be in placements and things of that nature. So having that experience, that's invaluable at the end of the day when it comes to Nick Vigil, and they've already been talking him up as a guy who could be a green dot if Eric Kendricks were to go down, or if they didn't feel comfortable with maybe one of the young guys taking over as a green dot, just because he knows that system so well. And then you look at Darius Harris. He was an undrafted free agent out of Middle Tennessee State back in the 2019 NFL draft. Went to the Kansas City Chiefs, played 4 seasons with them, played in all 17 games back in 2022, 2-time Super Bowl champion, but it's the special teams experience is what I'm keeping an eye on there as far as the impact he could have on this team. You lose Sam Williams and you lose that special teams presence.
Right.
Yes, they bring in 2 edge rushers who do have some of that special teams knacks, but I think you bring in a guy like Darius Harris who not only understands the close nature of the new kickoff rule and kind of how to be able to play in those close quarters, but you bring in a guy who has just special team experience on all 4 phases. So really like what he brings to the field too, and we'll see him as he develops over time.
Yeah, I'm really curious because something that we talked about, Nick, over the past couple weeks is with the new kickoff rules, will there be kind of some bigger bodies out there instead of a lot of defensive backs out there where you're, having to run down? Now you've taken away that 25-yard running head start, and the guys are the blockers and the coverage unit. Those people are only going to be 5 yards apart, so it's more close contact and maybe some bigger bodies. So Sam Williams was an anomaly to have a defensive end, a defensive lineman running down the field, but having some of the bigger body linebackers and stuff, I think will be part of it.
Yeah, and Sam Williams definitely would have been factored into this the special teams equation going into this year, which just adds another layer of how tough that injury is at the end of the day. But they bring in these 2 guys. They have big bodies that could work on the new kickoff rules already. Man, if anybody's going to toy with some options, it's going to be special teams coordinator John Foster.
For sure. I just don't know how much we're going to see it in this in the joint practice tomorrow with the Rams, and then in any of the 3 preseason games, because you don't want to show your hand going into regular season, right, Bonnie Jill?
Right.
I mean, we're kind of like lay low usually in the preseason games.
Yeah, you nailed that on that because they don't want to show all of our cards yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I don't think that we're going to see too much. I think we're a lot of the starters in there, and also you don't know, like we do a lot of one-on-one ones, and then they may be doing 1-2s, when you talk about for depth, so that's going to be different than what we do. So we'll kind of maybe take their lead, not really show them our cards.
I love that. Going back to the linebackers, does it kind of raise questions as far as Damian Wilson maybe? Because this is a guy they brought in for a little bit of that experience, right? What's your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think these are just 2 veteran guys who are out on the street who could provide stability and also experience for the youth in the room. I don't think it's necessarily an indictment on the guys who are in the room just because preseason hasn't been played, and I don't feel like they would put an indictment before those preseason games come around.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting reading up on Nick Vigil, because as you mentioned there, Nick playing for Paul Gunther when he was the Bengals defensive coordinator. Gunther before that had been in Minnesota with Zim. And so when he would show cut-ups to his Bengals players of how he wanted things done, he was showing a lot of Vikings tape, and it was Eric Kendricks that he was showing, right?
Yeah.
Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr.
Yeah.
And so Nick Vigil first comes into the league is seeing all this stuff, and now he quite possibly will be lining up to Eric Kendricks, and then, as you say, assuming a lot of Kendricks' roles in terms of mentoring and kind of making sure people know to be in the right place in Zimmer's system.
Yeah, he's just another on-field bridge for Mike Zimmer and the system being on the field. That's what I've kind of mentioned Eric Kendricks being, because he's that guy who knows the system like the back of his hand, and he can be on the field and be that on-field coach for them at times. Not necessarily the defensive coordinator, obviously, because he has so much more experience and ideas to put on the field, but he's that bridge between what was and what is. So I think it'll really help out.
And I think it's also kind of cool how, last year the linebacker room was probably the weakest room, in the whole team. And the fact that they've made these new additions. You've got Eric Kendricks, Damone Clark, who's playing more freely now. But what have y'all seen so far from this room as far as it's impressed y'all through the first 2 weeks of camp now, 3 weeks now?
Yeah, I would say the way that the veterans are interacting with the younger guys and guys like Buddy Johnson, you know, linebackers are used so much in special teams. What you need to do over these next 3 preseason games, and if you're watching the joint practice on Thursday, look and see which of the backup tight ends, backup linebackers, and backup defensive backs are getting first team work on special teams.
Yeah.
Because those are the guys that have the best shot of making the 53-man roster.
Yeah, you're correct. And it was funny, I talked to linebacker coach McCurley, and he was saying he thinks that this linebacker core is the most athletic he has seen over the years. He also, what you were saying about Vigil, that he liked how he was able to fit right in that system. He had great awareness, versatility. So he said he really, really liked Vigil, which I thought was interesting. That right away he said, "I like him."
For sure, and for me, it's the balance because you really only had Damone Clark as the only healthy linebacker going into that Green Bay game. Yes, Buddy Johnson and those guys were on the roster, but Damone Clark was the only guy you could trust being on the field at that time, opposite of Marquise Bell. And you just wanted to add bodies coming out of the season.
Right.
And not only did you add bodies, you added a lot of different traits. And now you do have that balance that was not present at the end of the season last year. Or you can make the argument that wasn't present at the beginning of the season last year.
Yeah.
You have guys that can run fit. You have guys that can play in coverage. You have guys that can attack the backfield and get to the quarterback. So there's different things that this linebacker room has, leaps and bounds beyond what it was when we walked off the field, what was that, 10 months ago?
Yeah. The other thing that stood out for me, Nicole, because you say what's stood out is how much Maris Leofau is getting work in the first team, and I know that he's been on your mind too.
Yeah, what about actually Nick Harris? What do you like from Maris Leofau, bringing that versatility, the ability to play? You like them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's between the ears for sure. I mean, I think I don't like to go down the sicko path too much, but I will go down the sicko path with him as far as his background and his pedigree. He starts at a high school in Honolulu, Punahou High School, and they are known for being run-fitting guys on the island of Oahu. You see Manti Te'o coming out of there. You see all these Polynesian linebackers that are coming out of Oahu, and that is just translated over time. He goes to Notre Dame, and yes, he had more of a DB background coming out of high school, but he takes that into the linebacker room at Notre Dame. Those guys have produced guys for the last 20 years, and he has that hybrid role. He can play in coverage. Now he can step up and play in front of the line of scrimmage as well. But the thing with him that I loved the most coming out of the draft process was his third down ability, because he can play across the middle of the field. He can play in coverage, but he also has this little special ace up his sleeve that he can just attack the quarterback on third down, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. He'll make a beeline for that backfield, and he'll get there. And if he doesn't get there, he's disrupting the play. I love what that brings. That's not only the trust that the Notre Dame staff had in him, but it's also his different abilities, his versatility, and we're starting to see that out here a little bit. We're starting to see him take some different roles, coming off the edge a little bit more. And I think as time goes on, he's only going to grow smarter in the system, which means it's only going to open him up for more roles as well.
Yeah, and don't look for that in the preseason games coming off the edge. They'll probably, like Bonnie Jill says, keep that close to the vest until we get to regular season.
You made a great point for Vigil and Harris. I think the biggest thing is they're both special teamers, and I think that's going to help them to be able to make this team that's going to make the difference.
I think so.
Guys, we have a joint practice tomorrow. I think somebody said that maybe scrimmage tomorrow. The LA Rams come to town. What are you guys looking forward to? Let's start with this Cowboys defense. The matchups that you're kind of looking for most? Which one? I'll start with you, Nick Harris.
Yeah, we'll start with whoever lines up against Cooper Kupp, right?
All right.
That's going to be fun.
That's when you took mine.
I mean, Puka Nacua, not expecting him to be out there, which is tough because he's first cousins with Maris Leofau. It would have been really cool to see those two guys up against each other. But nevertheless, we'll see Cooper Kupp out on the field. So whether that's Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, or even Deron Bland getting reps against Kupp, that'll be huge to be able to see what's going on there. And then also in the interior of the defensive line for the Cowboys going up against the interior of the offensive line for the Rams, I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup because both sides have youth and both sides have some guys that need to take that extra step. So who's able to kind of, feel out that competition? And for me, just this joint practice as a whole, there are going to be things that you learn tomorrow that you need to apply on Sunday. And what are those things that are applied
How quickly
on Sunday?
can they assimilate?
Exactly. And that's going to be a really big test for these young guys to be able to be like, okay, he beat me here. Make sure I don't get beat in that same instance on Sunday. So that'll be really the things I'm looking for on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and can I jump in and follow up on that? Just because when you were talking about the defensive line, what's important about the joint practice is it's first team versus versus first team. We're not going to see first teamers in the preseason game. So really, this joint practice is the only time we're going to see the Cowboys ones go against the other ones. And that's why it would be such a great thing for the defensive interior of the line. But the problem is the Rams are missing 3 of their 5 starters on the offensive line. They're missing both their tackles, and then they're missing Jonah Jackson, who they signed in free agency from the Lions and gave him $17 million a year, a big contract for a guard. And so those guys are week to week with injuries. And so personally, I'm just kind of disappointed because the joint practice is a real barometer, a real measuring stick, and not that the reps against second team Rams would not be valuable, but I was really looking forward to seeing the first teamers versus first team.
And that's funny you say that because the Rams do a lot of 1s versus 2s. That's what's different. McCarthy does 1 versus 1, so that's why I'm curious to see how that's going to all play out. Don't you think, Christy? That's going to be interesting because then a lot of people are going to be exposed at that point.
I think so too. And the other thing that's different when you say like joint practice or a scrimmage and things like that, there is a difference. What's going to happen tomorrow is everything is scripted. It's going to look like a regular practice for a while until you see like team and 7-on-7 periods, one-on-ones where you'll have a Ram versus a Cowboy or the Rams team versus the Cowboys team. But as to what the plays are and stuff, it's scripted. It's not like a scrimmage or a game where they gain 8 yards on first down and now you're running a 2nd and 2. You know, it's more like a regular practice where they're and there will be situational periods and stuff like that. But that's the biggest difference that's going to take place between the Thursday joint practice and the preseason game is once you get into the preseason games, after kickoff, you can have a script, but it goes out the window depending on the situation and after the first play sometimes. But it's much more controlled when you have the joint practice.
Yeah, there definitely will be a scuffle or two. You're going to be right in the middle of it, right, Christy?
Right in the middle of it is crazy.
I'll make the story very quick, but what I remember about the last time the Rams were here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Modern Family, the great TV show, and Ty Burrell, who
what
plays.
Show was that? Sorry.
Sofia Vergara.
It's the 3 family.
You would know it.
Anyway.
You would know it if you saw it.
So Ty Burrell plays Phil Dunphy, right?
Yeah.
World's coolest dad, and he's a hilarious guy, and he's a big Rams fan. So he's watching practice with a buddy of his wearing a Rams shirt, and I'm like, I really want to talk to Ty Burrell. They do not have rosters. Maybe they would like one. So I grab a couple rosters and I walk all the way to the opposite end zone and introduce myself. Do you guys want some rosters? And Ty Burrell's like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm sideline reporter. Oh, wow, that's a really cool job. And I'm talking with Phil Dunphy, for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then the fight breaks out.
Oh, goodness.
So I can't remember that much about the fight, but I do remember I was talking with the dude from Modern Family.
That's all that
Hey,
matters.
Mike McCarthy said he's not playing that, though, tomorrow.
Yeah.
He did say that does not show toughness. It shows lack of discipline.
discipline.
So let's
The
tighten
Lions,
up, boys.
The Lions and Giants had a couple of scuffles this week in their joint practices.
Yeah.
Both teams
Sorry, I
fined
got fined.
$200,000. So.
$200,000.
Yeah.
Nick, before you go, I have to ask you about
Absolutely
Hunter
not.
Lipke. I know that's someone that you really like. And so
Yeah,
I had
absolutely.
to ask you, how do you see his role playing out, and what are you liking so far with him?
Yeah, I loved what Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones both said about him last week, right?
Yeah.
I was like, man, he's definitely not only on this roster, but he's gonna find some more opportunities for his versatility. I've seen him being lined up as a tight end, as an H-back, as a true on running back, fullback. I mean, they are going to try him in so many different areas to where he can not only be a lead blocker, but he can also be on the line of scrimmage at the point of attack. He's a guy that can carry the ball as well. You're going to see a lot of different usage from him, I think, in these first 2 preseason games. And I think he's going to be able to excel in those roles. And I keep going back to what he did at North Dakota State. And it's obviously a much different level of football, but how he was able to spread his wings as he got more comfortable up there in Fargo, I start to see that now because you see that confidence with him. And he's still the same exact guy as he was when he got in here. If you talk to him, he's like, yeah, the only thing that makes me excited is my wife and kids. Like, all right, guy.
I like that.
But nevertheless,
We're visiting this week, so
he's the
yeah.
best. He really is the best. But you see that on-field confidence really starting to grow, and that stemmed from special teams, and then it went into being a lead blocker as time went on last year, carrying the ball. And then, yes, he has that fumble against Miami, but then he started to bounce back as time has gone on. So, yeah, love what Hunter Lipke has in front of him.
Sorry, I had to ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I will
ahead.
spend the whole episode talking about
It's
Hunter
like a
Lipke.
fan club. You're going to have a shirt next time he comes on.
I actually had a chance to ask Kyle Yeomans, shout out to him. The running back room, you typically have about 3 or 4 on the roster that make the roster, right? If you had to choose, as of today, who would be your 3 to 4 guys that would make the roster?
Yeah, Lipke aside.
Okay.
So I'll go just because I feel like he's on an island by himself. He has a safe roster spot. Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle. And that third one's tough. I think you have to lean on Royce Freeman just with the veteran experience. But is there a guy like Malik Davis or Deuce Vaughn who can show you playmaking ability? Because I just don't feel like this running back room.
And watch for Malik and see if because he has been getting first team reps on
He's
special
the dark
teams,
horse.
and that's
He's the dark horse.
Yes,
Yeah.
they like him. I was disappointed last year that. Because his first year he got on more than he did his second year, right? And so I think that he's disappointed too.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if he can make up for that this
I
year.
think Malik Davis is the dark horse. And I think it was just the dynamics of the room that didn't really allow him to find a role last year.
Right.
Because you had the playmaking back in Tony Pollard. They need that playmaking back now. Now, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, Snoop Connor? Those guys have an opportunity to show that. And if they don't, then they might have to go out for outside help.
But Deuce is interesting because with Mike McCarthy kind of using him as a receiver, trying to just find different roles for him, I mean, where do you see him truly fitting within this team? Because, I mean, obviously you see what he can do on special teams, but offensively, where do you see him fitting truly?
Yeah, that's part of the training camp experience.
Yeah, I mean, like
on the practice squad,
right?
Yeah,
probably so. And you would have to be okay with the fact that he might not survive waivers, just because with the sense that he does have this huge resume that he brought from Kansas State as this big time playmaking back. But at the same time, you understand why they're putting him in the slot, just because they got to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, get him in open space.
Exactly. When he has the ball in his hands, he can make things happen. It's just he needs the right situation. And you look at the carries that he had last year, it was with the second and third team offensive line. It was with nobody really being able to pave the way for him. He was having to shed guys before he even got out of the backfield. So a rightful opportunity in the preseason, and also a healthy opportunity. He's been battling a hamstring. But I think if he can at least make some plays happen and figure out a way to carve a rollout, they're going to figure out how to keep him on the team. But they're also not going to bend their legs backwards to do that.
Yeah, well, certainly tomorrow is going to be a test for a lot of guys, especially for the Cowboys going up against the Rams, seeing how those teams match up a little bit, heading in before preseason, the first preseason of this 2024 season. Let's go. Finally, we got football back, baby. Right? Hey, I like that. I like that. Well, we're going to take our second break. You're watching Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back.
The Dickey family always mandated that the only Polish-style sausage worthy of their restaurant must have high-quality coarse ground beef and pork, rich spices, and fresh natural casings. We still serve it to this day, and it's so popular, Dickey's sausage has been named the official sausage of the Dallas Cowboys. The perfect matchup on game day. Dickey's Barbecue Pit. No one outsmokes us. Order at dickeys.com. For groups, call 866-BARBECUE.
Dibs on the ribs.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby. The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Are you the 2024 Dallas Cowboys Fan of the Year? The Dallas Cowboys and Captain Morgan are celebrating extraordinary, inspiring, and original fans. Nominate yourself or the biggest Cowboys fan you know for a chance to be named the 2024 Fan of the Year and win prizes, including a trip to Super Bowl 59. Visit DallasCowboys.com/Fan of the Year. And go Cowboys.
Well,
You're
hopefully
saying we're going to be in it. Then.
Yeah,
There we go.
just literally
and
have to be
we'll
like,
see you there. Yeah,
we'll be there live.
Cowboys
That's
there.
right.
That's right. Yeah, we will treat you to a mocktail.
Hello.
Yes, there we go.
See, we were all on the same page there. I love that. I love that. Ladies, I know the Cowboys, there was an unofficial depth chart released. Of course, it doesn't mean much right now. We're still only in week 2, week 3. I'm losing track of my days in training camp. But if you look at it, we'll talk wide receivers now. This is, of course, without CeeDee Lamb and his absence here at training camp. But you got Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Cropper in the fold, Kavontae Turpin, of course, and then Cam Johnson, Ryan Flournoy, and the list goes on. But when you talk about the Cowboys, and they typically bring about 5 to 6 receivers on the roster, if you've got Jalen Tolbert that's really starting to solidify himself as that wide receiver 3 role, right? But Jalen Cropper had his best practice of camp yesterday.
Yeah.
Christy, I'll start with you. What are you liking from Jalen Cropper?
Everything. He caught everything thrown his direction. I don't know if it was an unofficial record for most catches in a single catch at training camp, but in a single practice at training camp, but it seemed pretty close. Got to visit with him afterwards. I'll tell you what was really sweet, Bonnie Jill. You'll love this, and you might have seen it. Nicole, I'm not sure if you saw it because I know you were talking with some of the other players, but the fans that line the perimeter that are along the fence line, and they might have like a Dak jersey or a Zeke jersey that they're holding over the thing, you know, in hopes that the player will come over and sign the jersey. I look over, and there's a number 16 Jalen Cropper jersey.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And let's just say you don't see a lot of those
means
in
they
the
ordered
pro
it.
shop.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. At DallasCowboys.com
Yes, there
pro
we
shop,
go.
you can order your own. Anyway, but
on,
I
marketing.
look over and I see the Jalen Cropper 16, and of course Jalen goes over afterwards and signs it and is visiting with the folks. So it's obviously some family or friends. He went to high school up in Clovis, so not far from Fresno. So
Where he went to college,
north,
yeah.
just a couple hours, maybe 2.5 hour ride with
Maybe
traffic.
an hour and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
with the
pretty
traffic,
close.
it's pretty close. And so I figured it was some family.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's my friend's mom, and she had come and she had the jersey made, and some other friends were there, and so I just thought that was super sweet. So he was able to show out for the family and for the friends that were here to visit.
That's
but
what matters too, don't you think, Christy?
I think
really
it
helps
does.
with their confidence and just get, a little bit of
Sure.
a pep.
For sure.
It does. We were mentioning Hunter Lipke earlier, and you mentioned about his family. Yeah, his wife and kids are visiting this week, and he was so excited about it. But yeah, he really had an outstanding practice yesterday. And one of the names, Ryan Flournoy, is draft. So he's finally back after the injury and has worked his way back into practice over the previous couple of days. But he had missed some time, and of course it's so important at this point of camp to get that time. And so I'm curious to see how he's able to do in the joint practice and in the preseason games, because maybe falling behind a little bit just in terms of not having the same number of practice reps.
Yeah, I really like Cropper. I think the front office has kind of a problem now because they have to figure out how to maybe, make room for him. But also with CD coming back, him playing the slot, I kind of think that he'd be the first person to go. But as of right now, I think it comes down to how well he plays on special teams, going back to that as well. But I think he's an excellent route runner from what I've seen so far. He seems to be able to get the feel of getting open is what I've noticed, and I love that. And also he can play slot or the flank or the outside. So, I think that's important that he's pretty versatile. But he's just making plays, like you said, Chrissy, all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, and because he was on the
regardless of who's under center.
Exactly. And because he was on the practice squad all last year, he was catching passes from Trey Lance and Cooper Rush, and had a year in the system. So certainly a head start over the rookies coming in. Or same thing with Tyron Billy Johnson, and I know he's a guy that we've been talking about as well.
There was a catch yesterday in yesterday's practice from Jalen Cropper. He caught it over Nashawn Wright as a toe drag, and I was like, this kid's going to be pretty awesome this season. Hopefully, if he makes the roster.
I really want him to.
I want him
really
to.
pulling for him.
Yeah.
Chrissy, I feel like you are too, right?
Well, yeah, you talk to the
a good
guys,
kid.
and they're just great stories, and he didn't have a lot of offers. He stayed home and went to
Yeah.
Fresno State, stayed close by and stuff. So, you just, once you get to know some of the guys, then
That's what's hard.
you can't help but root for them.
Right. And with Turpin, I don't know how much you guys like him for being small. I think he's great in the red zone. I feel like he's another kid that you want to kind of make the team as well, because I like how he again finds space, good hands. I feel like he has really good hands, and he's pretty explosive after the catch, which I noticed.
Well, he's also versatile too. They use him coming out of the backfield as well. Obviously special teams, but he was underutilized. I feel like in the offense last year, because you had Cooks, you had Jalen Brooks who was making plays, you had Jalen Tolbert as well, and of course CeeDee Lamb, just his record-setting season.
Yeah,
But good production when he was.
For sure.
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
was more just like certain packages, though. And so, the fact that they're utilizing him in more ways. But that's also just growth in the offense and growth as a professional and things like that, and just better
I have to ask
understanding.
you, Christy, do you like him better on the inside or the outside? Because I've been hearing more of the inside, that he's more
Turpin?
suited, I should say, in
Turpin?
the inside. Yes,
Yeah,
Turpin.
True, but at the same time, and as Nicole mentioned, even if it's in the run game or on a sweep to get him out, if you can get him on the perimeter with a little bit of space, that's
Okay.
great too. So he's got the speed and the wiggle, that would work in the slot, certainly can
Right.
and does. But if you get him in the perimeter with that speed, then he can, hopefully make some catalytic plays like that.
I think this next couple of weeks are going to be crucial for this wide receiver room, because
Very
there's so many
telling.
guys fighting for roster spots, especially a guy, Tyron Billy Johnson, who spent last year on practice squad. He's obviously spent some time with multiple teams, but I think that this is probably one of his best camps since he's been in the league for 4 years?
Yeah.
2020, so 4 years. What are you liking from him, and do you think he has a legit chance to make the roster, Christy?
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of him.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I think it's more of a numbers game. And then, the staff also like David Durden, right, who had the knee injury last year, tore his knee ligament in practice training camp, and so he rehabbed with John Stevens and Overshone all year. And so I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity in preseason as well. So, again, look and see which of the wide receivers and DBs. Sorry to repeat myself, but I promise you, just keep an eye on special teams, because
That's
if
with
you
everything.
are not a starter,
Special teams is it.
that's the way to know who the coaches are thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
They're giving them that opportunity on teams because they're thinking maybe this guy could be not only on the 53, but will he be active 48 game day? Because yes, you have 53 players on the roster, but only 48 can be active on game day. So that's a question going in.
Right.
Okay, 53, well, how often are we going to be able to use him, or will he be one of these inactives all season?
And then you wonder with CD, when he does come back,
Yeah.
I mean, positive there, you wonder then who's the
Yeah,
the one that-
and we should just explain to everyone that his move, the procedural move on the roster to did not report reserve
Yeah.
did not report. The reason why you do that now is so that you could open up a roster spot.
Absolutely.
Because he was counting against the 90 man, and so when you open that roster spot, is you talked about earlier, Nicole, with the 3 people brought in today, you could have only yesterday you could have only brought in 2 of them. So it's just a procedural move so that you could get more bodies in camp and more looks at different people.
If you guys had to choose, if the Cowboys were to, let's say, make a new addition to the team, aside from on offense, what position group do you feel like they would do?
Christy, you take that.
Wow. Maybe running back.
Running back?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe running
Not
back.
satisfied with the depth yet?
Well, I mean, I think that any additions would probably come so much later in August than they used to, just because now you don't have the gradual roster cuts from 90 to 75 to 65 to 60. Now it's just 90 to 53, and then there's over 2,000 people available. So,
I agree with you, the
but
running
the
back.
one thing that's disappointing is Royce Freeman, the former Ram. He hadn't been practicing this week with, I think it was a groin injury, and so
I think that was
but I think
Monday?
I think that they know what they have in Freeman, and so the fact that he probably won't participate in the joint practice and maybe not the preseason game. That's more reps for the Snoop Connors and the Malik Davises of the world and Deuce.
Speaking about that one, though, Royce actually addressed the fact that he's a special teams guy, too.
He is.
Teams have used him on special teams. Yep. So, I mean, like you mentioned, the coaching staff knows what they have in him because he can bring special teams to the fold. He can bring, obviously, his ability at running back. So I think that he's a guy that potentially could probably make this roster.
Yeah, it seems to be the theme is a special team that
you got to bring versatility,
right? The versatility of having numbers. That as well, and that's how you make.
If you're a backup running back, backup wide receiver, tight end, DB, you were playing special teams.
Yeah.
Period. And then of course the backup linemen go in on the field goals and extra points. Yep. So yeah, I mean it's just a fact. So there's only 48 guys active on game day. There's no choice.
Tomorrow's practice, tomorrow's scrimmage. What position group do you feel will be the star of Thursday?
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Ooh,
you're welcome.
That's stars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with wide receiver. What do you
really?
think? Yeah.
I was going to go with maybe the secondary. I see the secondary. So you're going to say?
Yeah, Deron Bland. Come on now. Yeah. I mean, what did you just say? Anything but Bland?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Cornerbacks are going to steal the show. What about you? You said same
thing?
I
said, DBs, yeah. Well, they're so much better than last year. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's always been my concern with the Cowboys is the DB position. And I think we've seen that they excel much better than the other years. So that's what I'm going to go with. But Christy, it could be both. It could be a battle because there we go.
No, I'm going to go with wide receivers for the Cowboys because I think they'll get the better of some of the Rams DBs. So.
All right. Well,
hey, I hope we're all right.
I hope we're all right too. Only time will tell. We'll find out tomorrow on Thursday for practice. Make sure to tune into Training Camp Live on DallasCowboys.com. We'll have all the coverage and from the scrimmage and from the practice. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, y'all.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!